Mata, and welcome to Yarn with B, and we are talking all about living life on your terms. I am super excited. I have the most amazing man that we're going to have this little yarn about. It's nice informal yarn. Now, his name's Tod Stokes, and he's a Torres Strait Islander man, and he's from Legacy Counselling and Consultancy. Now, importantly, Legacy is doing an incredible job in our First Nations community. Now, some of the things we quite often collaborate with Tod, so I just love everything that he does. And, you know, Tod's a qualified mental health practitioner, Indigenous healing practitioner as well. He's got mental health qualifications and narrative therapy qualifications. He has done incredible stuff. He's been recognised. He's received these state SA Premier awards for his work on domestic violence, particularly about supporting men to move through their experiences of domestic violence, whether that is as an offender or perpetrator or as a survivor. So we've got to have this incredible yarn right now. I'm just so excited because he's doing incredible stuff. Culture is healing through trauma and bringing community back together. So here we go. It is an honour to welcome Tod Stokes from Legacy Counselling and Consultancy.
Hi everyone, how are you?
Mata, Tod. I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you. Took a while, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, firstly, we're here on Kaurna country, and even though both of us are on opposite ends of Adelaide, of Kaurna country, I just want to acknowledge that we are actually, both of us are visitors, First Nations people's visitors here on this country, and so honoured that that elders support our work here and that we get to work together. So I just wanted to say that first. But anyway, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited that you're here and that we're doing this. And, you know, living life on our terms, it's really interesting. You know, I wanted to start this podcast because, you know, so often people tell us how our life should look and it needs to look a certain way. And for me, it's about stepping into our authenticity, about doing things the way we want to, regardless of whether it looks okay to others. So I want to ask you, what do you see living your life on your terms? What does it mean for you?
So I think for me, to answer that, I have to go back a little bit. So I was in a job for about 10 or 12 years, and it was working with men, and I thought it was everything. I thought it was my whole life. In fact, I threw a lot of my life into it, working on the weekends, supporting community around domestic violence, but also working with the men. And at some point, there was a shift in the organisation, and I had to make a decision whether or not I still felt comfortable doing the work that I did the way that I did. And the answer to that was really no, I wasn't. And so it was a conscious decision to kind of eventually exit out of where I was working, but there was a whole lot of fear attached to doing that. I certainly knew I had the skills, but the confidence for me, even though I've been doing it for 10 years, and yes, as you said, Bianca, at the beginning, I had awards and accolades and stuff, but the confidence for me wasn't quite there. And I think for me, you know, I'm someone that doesn't really necessarily have a big ego. I've been told that before. I'm quite, in fact, I think you've said that a couple of times. And so for me, it was about trying to work through some of that first, some of that fear. And I think part of me living my best life now is understanding some of that stuff so that it doesn't impede me moving forward in terms of my work stuff. Once I'd made the decision, there was still some challenges, some pretty major challenges. And I had some wonderful support like yourself there to kind of guide me and direct me in a particular way. And again, I said this morning to you, Bianca, that sometimes it takes a while for me to kind of think about it, process it, and then move on. But part of that is actually, again, what you were saying. It's about working out, is that good for me right now in terms of my life? Whether it's a commitment to a web page or it's a commitment to a client, I need to work on, is that in my best interest moving forward? Because there's a commitment to all of it. So living my life is understanding the balance between, the client work, the training work, the support for other First Nations businesses, my family life. It's about understanding that. And I think touch wood, I think I've got that around about where I need it to be. But it was sitting and reflecting on that. Where do I want to be? And if I'm not happy in my work life or my family life, what do I do with that? Because often we can sit in relationships, and certainly the men that I work with, not all of them, but certainly some of the men that I work with are not in relationships that necessarily work for them, and they don't work for their partner. But they're often sitting there and get caught in that. So for me, living my life is being reflective and understanding that everything that I do, I have to think about. I have to take the time to reflect and think about how that's actually going to support me moving forward. Not just my mental health, but my body, whatever it is. Just thinking about that and seeing, okay, how is it impacting me and how is it impacting everybody else moving forward? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I want to touch on, what you were talking about, burning your own wood. What Annie Judy Atkinson talks about is, doing your own work first. And talk a bit more about that, because that's becomes the foundation to you moving forward, doesn't it? And stepping into who you are.
Absolutely. And I think it's overcoming those fears, because whatever we're doing, whether it's, if we're we've had trauma, we've experienced trauma in our lives, or whether, whatever it is, we really have to reflect. And I think when I listen to Auntie Judy and I listen to other clinicians like yourself, it's about reflecting on that stuff. And how is that stuff impacting me today? How is my trauma, which I may have experienced, and I've absolutely experienced trauma, how is that changing the way I think about myself, but also how I think about and how I interact around in my world, whatever that world is, relationships, job, whatever it is. For me, it was a slow process. And I really had to kind of look at some of the things that I was doing and really think about, is that what I want to do? Do I want to, I was a carpenter for 4 years. Do I really want to do that? As it turns out, I ended up having chronic fatigue syndrome, and I wasn't able to do that anymore. So my body answered that question for me. And again, sometimes, that sort of stuff puts you in a position where you have to sit back and reflect, because you can't do anything else. And I know when I had chronic fatigue, I still have it now, but when I had it full blown, it was a moment of clarity and a moment of reflection. I could do nothing else but reflect, so I decided to start to improve my mind, and sort of start to think about, where I wanted to be. And that's where that pretty much started, probably about 15 years ago. But I ended up here working with men, and because of my history, I knew that, there might be some men that have gone through something similar that I'd gone through. And unbeknownst that I'd be on this amazing journey, but started off just sort of trying to support men and give them, a little bit of my knowledge and my understanding of what was going on for me. Not their journey. Their journey's different, but this is what happened to me. This was my journey. This is why I felt that I was, holding a lot of regret and anger in and pushing it down, pushing those emotions down. And so for me, it was about understanding that. But like, since I made the decision to leave work, my life is everything has just fallen into place. It's exactly where I'm meant to be. I know that now. Work's taken off. If I'm working with clients or, facilitating training, that's that's going amazingly. I'm learning so much. And it's just been an absolute joy. Relationships in my life are fantastic and better. I'm more relaxed. I'm all those good things that I couldn't envisage at the time because I was consumed by this fear. So part of that living out life is reflecting on it, understanding that there might be some challenges. You know, we can't kid ourselves and go, oh no, it'll be all good. No, there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some doubt. As humans, that's what we do. But pushing through that and having some amazing supports around us is really important, and they can get us through those moments where we're struggling.
Absolutely. You know, I want to touch on, you know, and thank you for your honesty, you know, about what life is like, because that's part of, you know, we're not encouraged in the community to do that, but it's certainly beautiful when we see it. You know, you left a job that you'd been in for a decade, and decided to become an entrepreneur. Now, my guess is that there were those doubts to start off with about, you know, you're married, you know, you've got a family, about, you know, stepping into the unknown as an entrepreneur. You know, how did you navigate that? Yeah, I see that face.
Well, I understood. Firstly, I understood that there was a lot of fear. I had a friend, the lander, who was working with me at the time at the same place, and she would kind of sit next to me, and we'd have conversations. She goes, you know what, you're better than where you are. You know, you need to, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm quite happy. And then eventually it just came to a head, and I kind of felt that I was backed into a corner. And when I feel like that, my response isn't to resist. My response often is to go, okay, what's my exit strategy here? So I found my exit strategy, but at the same time, I was so nervous because ultimately, you know, when you leave a job, there's no income. So you have to very, very quickly create an income, whatever that income looks like. And, you know, I made mistakes. I went to providers. Yeah, absolutely right. And it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. I went to providers that I'd been working with for 10 years that knew me and said, hey, look, I'm out by myself now and happy to help and happy to, you know, do whatever. And they went, yeah, that'd be great. But there was no funding. So there was literally no money for the men that I was working with. That money had been given to services to kind of handle. And that was quite challenging. So I found myself, again, pivoting, and I've done that a couple of times in my business, having to pivot quickly, having to kind of go, okay, so this isn't working for me, whether it be a price, whether it be my costings, whether it be, you know, the training that I'm doing, whatever it is, I needed to pivot quickly and work out where I needed to be. I did have some amazing friends that absolutely supported me early on, yourself included, Bianca, but also some of the services. So some good friends in women's legal service. Here's this fella going to women's legal services to do some consultancy. Who would have thought, right? But it was drawing on those strengths and drawing on that network that allowed me to kind of, and gave me the breathing space to be able to go, okay, I can get through this period of time. I'm going to work out what I need to do. The other thing that I did was I was a prolific writer in terms of programs, and I've still got programs now. So there was a period of around about 2 or 3 weeks that I said to myself after I left my work, okay, I'm just going to do nothing. I'm just going to have a holiday. I hadn't had a holiday for a while. I'm just going to have a holiday. Well, that went out the window. And I got bored very, very quickly, and I started to write. So I started to write programs, which I'd done at my former employer's place. So I just started to write programs. So whatever the program was popped into my mind, I just write it down. And it might be good, it might not be good. But I remember listening to Prince's story, and I'm bringing Prince into this, but one of the things that he said was he just writes, and some of it's not so good, but some of it's good. But he would come back to it, and he would go, okay, that's not too bad. I'll take a bit of that and a bit of that and put that together and see what happens there. And I kind of think that's kind of what I did in that 2 or 3 weeks. And I think I probably wrote maybe 5 or 6 actual programs, 12-week programs, and they're still sitting in. Some of them are still sitting in my computer now, and I haven't done anything with them. But some of them I kind of pull out and kind of pick apart. But being able to do that, being able to pivot, is kind of, what also kind of helped me out. Going from working at a very base level with clients to doing some consultancy stuff to then doing some facilitation work, and then when I needed to, I'd jump back into the client stuff. And the other thing that I'd say is, I had a very clear vision of what I needed in terms of finances. So I had what I call, that was my base. So I had a base of clients that I would absolutely go, okay, I need this many clients to pay the bills, right? Which alleviated quite a lot of stress for me. Money was one of those big things, one of those fearful things. You go, I'm struggling here. I haven't got a lot of money, and the bills. I need a gas bill, and when are we going to? But being able to set that platform first up with clients and the consultancy work was really, really good for me in terms of that stuff. It took a lot of that fear away. The main fear for me and the main hurdle that I had to overcome was self. So it was going, well, I shouldn't be doing this. My self-worth was at a point where I actually felt that I shouldn't have been doing it. I should have been working for an organisation. So I remember putting in an application form about 6 weeks into the local Onkaparinga Council for a men's worker, and I didn't get it. And I was like, what?
Yeah, and how good was that?
It was great. But it was really funny because I actually did that job before I started at my past employer. And I'm like, wow, I've actually gone backwards. That's kind of what happened in my head, right? I've gone backwards. How did that happen? And then someone said, you haven't gone backwards. It's just, if you look at your resume, you're completely over too much. You've got too much qualifications.
Yeah.
So they just want somebody that's going to support the men to, have breakfast in the morning and have a bit of a yarn. It's at that level, and you're not at that level. You're at this level. And I'm like, still doesn't help me. It literally didn't help me because, again, that internalization, which is interesting. Fast forward, as you said, Bianca, I'm glad I didn't get it because I would have still been stuck there. Not stuck there. It's a great job, but still would have been there. And again, that probably would have been the last time that I decided to venture out on my own and do my own thing. So yeah, so pivoting and understanding that every step of the way you have to kind of look at where I am and look at where I want to be. And that's my philosophy of life. I had a set goal, and it's not always a monetary goal. Sometimes it's a goal on what I want to achieve and where I want to go. And it has little to do with money. I've got a project in my head for our local domestic violence community, and that will be something that I absolutely want to sort of hit that mark. So that's the sort of stuff that I do. I set those kind of goals out, 12 months out, so that I can actually, have time to finish them.
Absolutely. Now, we touched a little tiny bit on Indigenous healing practices, and I want to go back to that because I think, both of us sit in that space, and it's removing the walls, which can be, in a clinical sense, as a clinician, it can be quite confronting to stand up to the volume of the medical model and the people who access our services, they're used to sitting in a medical model approach, and the way that we have to report on people who access our services is always focused about dysfunction and functional capacity and things like this, rather than, wow, this person got out of bed today and went out into the community and engaged. That's the kind of stuff that we have to deal with. So let's have a yarn about that, standing up to these services that are very much focused on a Western medical model of working with people and what it's like moving outside of that limitation. I see it as. Yeah, let's have a yarn. What's it like? What does it look like?
It's very interesting. I remember one of the first clients that I had, and he was involved in corrections, and he was on home D, and he was living in a particular place which is a secure facility, and you can't get in and out without you being beeped in. And I was sent the referral, and they said, "Look, you'll do amazing things with him." I'd already worked with this person in the past, the referrer, and she said, "Look, you'll be amazing with him." So I remember talking to the client, and I said, "So where would you like to have your sessions?" And he goes, I've been in jail for 2 years, and I haven't seen the beach for a little bit longer than 2 years. And I'd really like to have him down there." And luckily I understood the way corrections work. And they do the things they do to keep people safe. That's why he had an anklet on. He was on home D. So I understood that I also could advocate for him and the reasoning behind that. So I was in a bit of a position in terms of that stuff where I could absolutely advocate for him. And I remember we finally got the okay for him to walk along the beach, along the esplanade. So we would spend our time walking along there. But I remember the first time we were going there, and it was a public holiday. And I get a frantic phone call from corrections going, "What's going on? This guy, are you?" And I said, "He's with me. We've worked all this out. He's with me." He's like, "But you're working on a public holiday." I went, "Yes." And the client's been kind of incarcerated for two and a half years. So yeah, we're working on a public holiday because that's what we need to do. If you want me to continue to work with him, you'll let me do it the way that I do it, that will be successful. And again,
mental health doesn't take a break.
No,
public holidays.
It doesn't, right? And the client was so wound up, and he was quite, obviously at that time, he's had a lot of trauma in his life, and he's quite stressed. And he's like, "Oh no, we're going to have to go back." And I said, "We're not going to have to go back. They know exactly who you are. They know exactly who I am. They know exactly where we're going. They can track us. It'll all be good." And eventually the supervisor rang me and said, "Hey, Todd, how you going?" I went, "Who's this?" "Oh, it's this person." I was like, "Oh, hey, how you going?" She goes, "It's all good. I've worked it out." So we had this wonderful walk along the beach, and you just saw the stress and pressure dripping off of him. It was just like, he was like, "Oh my God, I haven't been here for so long." He was quite teary about that experience. And at one point he just stopped and he just looked out at the sea. And, I always say I didn't really do anything apart from provide that advocacy for him to get down there. But that was just, I didn't even have to say too much. That was just him just going, "Oh."
Country heals.
Absolutely, Bianca. And moving forward, I kind of use that as an example as to, we talk about mental health, and we talk about, that medical model. Well, here's a model that actually showed results. And, he went from a client for correction staff who was quite belligerent to somebody that was quite conforming, because he wasn't trauma. He wasn't in his own brain. He had time to relax and time to kind of just chill out and just do what he needed to do. And it was by simply just going to the beach. And it's not just going to the beach. We understand what happens to the brain when you go to the beach, right? But again, that's just challenging the normal way that medical responses are. Had we been in the room, had we been in a white wall room with very limited windows, very limited space, I guarantee you he would have absolutely probably been triggered at some point, because we're talking about some serious stuff. And that wouldn't have been good for anybody. It certainly wouldn't have been good for him. It wouldn't have been good for me, because I don't like, pressing the button, as I say, "Come and help me." I don't like doing that. And probably for other staff in that area as well, probably would have been bad for him. So again, I like to bring that up and challenge it and just sort of say, "Hey, look, this is what we're dealing with here. We're not just dealing with the mental health issue or the mental issue that they've been diagnosed with, the mental disorder that they've been diagnosed with. We're also dealing with all that stress, all that pressure, all that trauma that's just sitting below the level." And we need to kind of dissipate that, so then we can have that deeper conversations a little bit further down. We need to regulate the person that we're working with, absolutely regulate them, and then they're able to open up.
Yeah. And, so often I say this, when you're inside, you talked about the four walls, the white walls with hardly any windows, the door shut, and it's like, you're trapped. You're when people talk about really difficult stuff, it hits the walls and bounces off and intensifies. And I tell you what, as a therapist, it's horrible sitting in that space. It is, and for the people who are actually sharing their story, their experience, it just makes it so much heavier. But when you're outside and you're regulated by country, when I'm hearing the breeze, the wind in the background, it's really windy here too. And, when all of that kind of stuff helps regulate you and reminds us of our innate healing ability. This is not something that we do to people. This is something that we support them and remind them that they have this ability, innate healing ability inside of them. And it's those walls that, and the sitting behind a desk, or the, two chairs kind of like this. I mean, going down the beach, moving their body, feeling the breeze, listening to the sound of the ocean, smelling all those different amazing things is so cool. And it's how we're meant to heal. It's how we've always healed. And I think so often we miss that. Well, the medical model misses that innate connection, that we're relational beings. We miss all that kind of stuff. And it's just so damn frustrating at times. And this is the bit, it's that stepping into who you are and going, no, I don't want to be part of that institutionalization, that system. I want to do something different.
And, the importance about that, Bianca, I love what you said there. The importance about that is also that a good clinician will explain to the person that you're working with that we're not as a clinician, I'm not actually doing anything. They're doing it. Their brain's doing all of that. So when they feel dysregulated, when they feel that kind of tension, they simply need to open up the door and walk outside. It's simple, but it's not simple, right? Connect with country, touch the trees. I use the analogy: grab the eucalyptus leaves, scrunch them up, and smell them. Do stuff like that. Grab some bark, rub the bark in your hands, grab some dirt, feel that connection to country and feel that connection to the earth, Mother Earth. And it's so lost on the Western medical model, that sort of connection. We all need connection. Now, not only was this fella not connected to people, but he wasn't connected to his country. He wasn't connected to he was connected to nothing. He was in a building that was basically a room, just a white wall room with very little. If he was lucky enough to get a window, he was lucky enough to get a window, but I don't reckon he had a window. So he was literally in a prison. And some might say, well, that's where he deserved to be. And yeah, he committed a crime. But still, we don't give up on people. People can change. I'll share a little bit about his story a little bit later on, what happened to him. But it's the importance of that, as you say, Bianca, connecting with nature. And we lose that with the Western medical model. We want to. It's a fast service kind of model where you give a pill and that'll help someone regulate. Actually, it doesn't. What it does is it numbs them so that they can't feel what they're feeling sometimes. Some people need medication, absolutely. But for a vast majority of people, it's simply a numbing down of your emotional state. And so it's a mask, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely, mask. And so you can get the same sort of benefit. In fact, I would say a better benefit by just walking outside and going for a walk and literally connecting with nature. And it's not about just walking past nature. It's about connecting with it, being in that moment, looking at those leaves. I'm looking at some wonderful cannas that we have here, and there's all these colours I've got orange and yellow and brown and black, and they're just there. And it's the canvas of nature, and that's
it's funny because we both intentionally have greenery in our back area. People always talk to me here about all the plants that I have, because when I'm on Zoom, I need to be able to connect. I would love to be out in the garden on Zoom, but or StreamYard or what online, but I have no service out there, so I have to be here. So it's about both of us are looking at different ways to help people remind of their regulation ability. And I think that's kind of cool. I want to ask probably one or two more questions, because you know how we go with yarning and stuff like that. What drives you, Tod? What drives you to as Tod? Not necessarily as Indigenous healing practitioner, therapist, husband. What drives you? Who are you?
So I think that's a great question. And the reason that I call my business Legacy Counselling and Consultancy is, and it's on my webpage, it's not the legacy
details right there. We'll share his links. We'll see the details there, and we'll share the links after. But sorry for interrupting. Keep going.
So the legacy is my legacy. Everyone's an individual. So what will my legacy be? So that's what drives me. When I leave this world and I visit with my ancestors, what will my legacy be? What will people say about me? What will they think about me? It's not about the money that I leave my family. It's not about how much money I can make. It's about what those people will think of me. Whether I'm a good bloke or not so good bloke, whatever it is. And for me, it's about making sure that I'm the best that I can be on any given day. And sometimes I'm not that person. Sometimes I get it wrong. We all get it wrong. But it's about backing up, reflecting on, okay, where did I go wrong in that situation? And how can I be better next time? And it's about that reflection and that deep reflection. But for me, that's what drives me. It's not money. It's not fame. People say, oh, look, we'll put you up for an award. No, don't do that. I don't want you to do that. I'm not interested in that. That's not my legacy. My legacy is doing the work that I do. My legacy is supporting families. My legacy is supporting men that dysregulate and men that haven't had the opportunities necessarily that I've had to understand that my trauma impacts me and it also impacts my family. So that's what my legacy. That's what drives me. That's where I want to go with my legacy. Understanding that's where I'm at, and understanding that's what drives me. But also what drives me is supporting businesses. And I learned from a wonderful woman, Bianca, and that is to support businesses that might not be in the same perspective that you have. They might be artists, they might be whatever they are, but let's bring our communities up, because only then can we have equity throughout the community. We have amazing Aboriginal people out there doing amazing, and Torres Strait Islander people doing amazing things right around Australia, but we don't see that. And I want to, the other part of my legacy is actually shining a light on that stuff, shining a light on those amazing businesses that are doing incredible things that don't just get seen. So that's the other part that I do, and some new businesses, and there's some wonderful clinicians that I'm supporting, and they're supporting me. To be honest, they're doing the same thing. So it is that two-way stuff, but supporting them. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
So that's that reciprocity, or in Budimai Ngalami Yuguja, that's that giving to each other. You do a lot of stuff in the community, and well, we both do, and most First Nations peoples do. You're now volunteer coordinating Black Coffee, the Indigenous Business Networking event. How do you find that? Because the linkages that you have is now mean that more people than ever are coming to Black Coffee and and sitting down and learning those connections and that support. How do you find it?
I find it easy. It's not easy in terms of time, but the connection part is easy. It's actually in our DNA. That connection part's in our DNA. And it's interesting because I remember a time when I first started my journey, I resisted it. I literally felt uncomfortable doing, like, if you asked me to do a podcast 10 years ago, it's like, oh, no, not doing that, not doing it. I just don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to, who wants to put this mug? I used to call myself Shrek, right? That's how disparaging I was, because I didn't quite understand it. But it's when I decided to give up on that, just let that trauma go. And that was based on my past trauma. But let that trauma go and kind of understand that, you know, there's some things that we need to do that actually come inherently easier for us, that connection stuff, that it made my life easier, it made my job easier, and I'm able to do those things quite effortlessly. But I do find that wherever I possibly can, I want to connect people together and then step out of the way. Because it becomes their relationship, and the work that I do at the university has certainly been doing that. People go, oh, you're doing all these things. It's like, yeah, essentially all I'm doing is I'm connecting this school up with this school, and you guys can talk and do whatever you need to do. I don't need to be involved, but that's my role. My role is to connect people to the School of Psychology. You know, whether it be Wurtu Yala, which is
at Adelaide Uni.
At Adelaide Uni, whatever it is. So it becomes that blueprint, you know. And even with the clients that I work with, it's something similar. It's, you know, we've got a mutual client that we had that I was telling you the other day, that we've now got him to a point where he was actually at home all the time, and he's now going out and having the life of an 18-year-old. Let's just say that. He's going out and he's going to events. And that was unheard of 2 years ago. So all we did was we connected him with some of his friends, reconnected him with some of his friends, and then his friends have said, "Hey, why don't you come out with us?" He's like, "Oh, I don't." But we've given him the support to be able to do that, and I think that's the thing that that's quite healing for him, and quite a monumentous kind of occasion for his family, and it's really kind of made his mum really think, actually, and she was really worried about when she passes. How's he going to look after himself? Well, right now, she knows that he can look after himself. she's that gone. So that's for her. That's a good thing. But I think, as I said, for me, it has always been about that connection to people and connecting people up. But you sometimes do resist it, and I think, you know, resistance is futile. Is the thing that comes to mind.
Especially when I encourage you to do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Bianca. I wasn't going to say that, however.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm sure people will learn that.
Yeah. But putting yourself in that position also, when it goes back to that trauma that I talked about earlier around my life, it gets us to reflect and go, why is that the case? You know, why am I doing that? What is creating that negative thought in my brain that says I don't want to be part of that? And it's thinking about that and going, oh, that's where that comes from. You know, that's that self-reflection. That's burning your own wood. Oh, no. And once I know where that comes from, then I'm able to go, okay, so we just need to put that to the side, because we understand that's going to be a challenge every time, but I know where it comes from, and I'm going to challenge that. I'm going to challenge that every time that I do that. Every time that, you know, I'm put in that position, I'm going to do that. And I'll share a story with you. The very first time that I spoke, it was probably one of the first times that I spoke to a big crowd. I was at my former employees, and he did a great job of kind of pushing us forward, literally pushing us forward. And he said, I've got this little gig for you. It's just a little one. It's just, the Royal Doctors Society, and there's not too many there. It's not a big deal, blah, 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 blah. And I went, oh, okay. He goes, I want you to do it. I can't do it. I'm going away or something like that. I said, okay, I'll do it. No worries. And I remember asking him, where is it? He goes, it's at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. I went, what? And he goes, no, but they can break up the rooms. It's okay. It's fine. You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine. And he goes, there's not going to be many people there. So I'm like, okay, I trust you, no worries. And I walked in to the green room, which should have been my first kind of you got to go to the green room. And standing in front of me as I walked in was Graham Goodings, the old, not old, but the presenter, the news presenter. And he goes, hi, I'm Graham Goodings. I thought, yeah, absolutely know who you are. Shook his hand. And then my wonderful wife, Danny's gone, oh my God, it's Graham Goodings. We've got some photos and stuff. And then, again, I started to think, oh, this is quite stressful. Then Nat Cook comes in from the Sammy D Foundation, and now she's a minister. And then somebody else came in. It was Bruce Gitte from the Adelaide soccer team. And then they took us out, and I'm standing there, and I kid you not, there was about 1,500 people. And I'm sitting in this chair, and I am sweating. It's like I'm in Cairns, and the sweat's just dripping off me. And I'm thinking, I need a towel here. This is everywhere. You know, I don't want to lift my arms up because it's going to be pits and everything. And then we were asked questions, and I was so uncomfortable. But it was probably the best thing for me. And I remember poor Nat Cook. There was a question about how do we address domestic violence, which is, and without thinking, I just went, oh, we need to fund it more. And you know, the government's there, and she was a government minister, first government minister, been in there for a year, and just dropped her under the bus and went, I'm sorry, Nat. And she's like, oh, Todd, I'm going to kill you. But yeah, that just being able to kind of do that and go through that, I think, again, that's that challenging yourself to go through that and go, I'm actually going to be safe. If the worst thing in my life is that I stand in front of 1,000 people and I can't bring out a word, then that's okay. I've been through worse than most people have. So it's just overcoming that fear and understanding that I'll be okay in the end, and it'll work out, and it did work out, and you know, I learned from it and was able to kind of move forward from it.
Absolutely. So, in brief, what makes Legacy Counselling Consultancy so unique and special? If you could just summarise it.
Yeah. Well, we don't work like anybody else. We work like I know works. You know, we work because I've been through some of this stuff. I know what worked for me, and it might not be. You know, everyone's different, but I know that sitting in a room, 4 walls with no windows, talking to some sort of therapist, and the therapist going, so how did that make you feel? Didn't actually help me at all. You know, when I was dealing with my trauma, it certainly didn't. What helped me was a wonderful counsellor who said something a little bit different and was a little bit more, hey, you know what? And so that's kind of how I kind of do my therapies, but also being safe for me as a therapist is really important. And I think, in the open space that I feel the safest. I suffer from, potentially post-traumatic stress disorder because of the trauma that's happened to me. I don't want to be in that office because I don't want to be triggered. So I think that's probably the main difference, and I work the way I want to work, the way that, some of the research says that this is best practice. I think we can, as organisations, we can say we're doing best practice, but actually we're not. We're not actually doing best practice. So I literally put my money where my mouth is and go, this is what I believe is best for this particular client. And every client is different. There is, for me, and I treat every client differently. And so I think that's the other difference. I don't necessarily use the same modalities for the 18-year-old man experiencing autism as I do for the man that's just gotten out of jail that has, a whole bunch of trauma. There's differences, and I need to communicate those differences, for him to be able to be supported moving forward. And I think that's the big thing. The other thing that I would say is communication is really key for me in the work that I do. Very important, being able to communicate and talk naturally. Even now, I kind of feel that I'm putting on a bit of airs and graces because I don't want to get booted off. And just really check out my words. But I'm essentially I'm a man first, and so I know what it's like to be a man. I don't work with women. That's the other thing. I'm exclusively working with men, and I think that's fundamental to the work that I do. Understanding you know, might not know that person's journey, but I certainly know that the journey as a man, all those things that we go through, all those things, all those thoughts that we have when we're, you know, when we're isolated. I absolutely understand that, and you know, supporting men to walk alongside them, or walking alongside the men while they're being supported to kind of address some of those negative thoughts is really, you know, what I do, and I think the different point.
Absolutely. So if you could, for the people who are listening, watching, which is deadly, what is so important? What's a word of advice or a sentence of advice about living your life on your terms? What do you want to let people know?
Fear holds us back.
Oh yeah.
Fear holds us back. Understanding where that fear comes from is probably the most important thing that you'll ever do. Understanding why don't I decide to give up my job for 10 years and then go into private practice, or why am I scared to end that relationship? What it's that fear that holds us, keeps us anchored. And I think understanding that and addressing that fear is really important. And once we've addressed that fear, we can absolutely live the life that we're meant to live. Remember, we're meant to live. Fear's the hurdle. We've just got to get over it. We've just got to get over that hurdle so that we can move forward. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy by any means. But when we do, the world will open up. And opportunities will open up.
And I was feeling really teary. Like, have a look, I'm feeling teary. Hearing you say that, you know, fear holds you back. And you do no one favors. It's a bit like that quote. You know, you don't do anyone favors by playing it small.
Yeah.
And living the life you are meant to live. Like, that's so, understanding all of that and moving forward and not letting fear hold you back is so important. I think that's just great, and I think it'll be. I'd love to leave it at that, because honestly, don't let fear hold you back is probably the biggest. Well, not don't, because, you know, let's use narrative and neuro-linguistic programming. Move beyond fear. Yeah.
Can I just say this, Willie Joseph? I was involved in Amway for a brief period of time. It was a great experience because I needed positivity in my life. Yeah. And Willie Joseph is an American author, and he said, and he remembers. I remember him sharing a story about his son, and I can't exactly remember the story, but the son was playing checkers or cards, and you know, the son was losing, and the father thought he was making this you know, I'm teaching you a lesson, and the son would just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. And the father said to the son, I think it was the father said to the son, so why do you keep playing? I keep beating you. And the son said, it ain't over till I win.
Ooh.
And I think that resonated with me. And I think for me, it's even more about that fear, right? So it ain't over till I win. So keep going, keep going. Yes, there's going to be challenges, but keep going until you start to live your best life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Todd. It was an honor to have to yarn with you. You know, I love spending time with you and the work that we do collaboratively and things like that, and all the projects that we've got happening. I mean, we've just launched a new Indigenous what would we call it? Indigenous cultural employee assistance program providers. So, you know, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
There's no one else offering national service that is culturally safe and decolonized. So it's cool. Super cool.
It's nice to be part of it, to be honest.
Yeah. So cool. Anyway, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day and this beautiful day that we're experiencing, summer day. And yeah, everyone get over to Legacy Counselling and Consultancy on Facebook and Insta, and soon we'll be on the web as well, because Tod's doing incredible work. So thank you, Tod.
Thank you, Bianca.